Everyone saw my opinion on ASU versus Texas, but it's only fair if we get the other side of that perspective.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. We have got game day on Wednesday, and it's going to be a crazy showdown for Arizona State as they take on the Texas Longhorns. And look, at this point, a lot of Texas fans have found me. ASU fans have known about me. My opinions are in the internet forever. Whether I take it down or not, I know everyone's got videos and screenshots. Good news, I'm not taking it down, but it's there. And I've been roasted and toasted, and some of it very much deserved. Some of it, I still feel like I have valid arguments and I can back them up. But you Texas fans, you sneaky little dudes, you tattletaled on me to my friend Jonathan Davis from Locked On Longhorns. Well, joke's on you. Me and Jonathan Davis always had a plan to sit down for a crossover edition of Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Longhorns. And don't worry, he took notes and we had a really good conversation. He asked me about some of the bold statements I made. I backed him up. He provided a great argument to the other side. So my Sun Devil fans, if you want to hear the opposite, or the counter, I should say, of what I had to say on was that Christmas Eve? Christmas Eve or last Monday, something like that. On that episode that blew up, if you want the other perspective, and you should because you want to be up to date and know everything possible, then you need to listen to this episode because me and Jonathan Davis go back and forth, have a great conversation and dialogue about this game. Don't worry, he's still picking Texas to win. In fact, he's got Texas with the spread. It's certainly a very fun game that's coming up for ASU. High stakes, high emotions for both of these teams. Not just ASU, not just Texas. This is a football game where both these teams have a lot on the line to prove, not even just for a national championship, but just to show that they belong where they're at. But that's enough yapping out of me. I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan as me and him sit down for a crossover edition of Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Longhorns. I'll see you guys there in just a moment. Till next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.
Another Locked On crossover for you. The Texas Longhorns, Locked On Longhorns host Jonathan Davis, and the Arizona State Sun Devils, Locked On Sun Devils host Richie Bradshaw. Texas, the team that was supposed to be here. Arizona State, not so much. So much to discuss on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns and Locked On Sun Devils. And I know Longhorn fans, they've been waiting to hear from Richie Bradshaw, right? They listened to his episode last week. He had a lot of horns down, a lot of comments. They was telling me, Jonathan, did you hear what he said? Did you see his episode? So we got Richie to come outside, and he's going to discuss some of those comments on this crossover today. Once again, the Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State. So much to discuss over the first three segments. And I know, Richie, we never really got to work together thus far in terms of our time on the network because Texas was in the Big 12, and then Arizona State was in the Pac-12, and then Texas moves on to the SEC, and then you move on. Arizona State moves on into the Big 12. But I just want to ask you before we get into, the subject matter of Texas, Arizona State and this matchup on New Year's Day in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, what has this season been like for you? Right? Because you talk about a program like Texas where the expectations are sky high every year, right? It's conference championship, national championship every year. Whereas Arizona State, you talked about it on your episode, they were picked to be bottom in the Big 12 this year. Vegas had them set around 4 or 5 wins. And now they are in the college football playoffs as one of the 8 teams remaining that can win a national championship. So what has this season been like for you in terms of covering this team that you've talked about? Everybody overlooked, but, through unity, right? Togetherness, just friendship, grit, all of that. They now, once again, are one of the 8 teams remaining vying for a national championship.
It's nothing short of magical to see this team so quickly turn things around. The standards that we have in Tempe for ASU, we go bowling more often than not. We're used to 8 to 9 win seasons, get us a 10-win season every once in a while. Let's compete. Let's have a good time. A lot of people have said that Arizona State University, with majority of their athletics, they've been called the sleeping giant for a long time. Phoenix area is one of the biggest metropolitan cities in the country. ASU has everything to offer. They've got just about every sport, including like women's rugby and stuff like that. So, I mean, if ASU doesn't have it, you don't need it. With all the resources at their hands and so many boosters ready to jump in, it's just been a matter of time until everything finally culminated and came together for ASU. But no one thought it was going to be this soon. When Kenny Dillingham comes to Arizona State and he says, "Hey, we're going to activate the Valley. We're going to get everybody in on this program in ways that we should have been able to do years ago." We were all really excited and we all believed him. We all bought in. But this was a coach that was taking over for a team that was still dealing with NCAA sanctions from the recruiting violations committed by Herm Edwards, Antonio Pierce, and the previous staff during COVID-19. And this is supposed to be at least a 3, maybe even a 4-year project to get ASU back. So for them to turn the corner this quickly really shows you how important and how fast everyone is bought into this culture that he has set, and that the players have from there executed and created. ASU has had, I think, almost 30 kids from this year's roster already confirmed that they will be returning for next year's roster too. So you're looking at sustained success for ASU as long as everything stays in touch. And I mean, this is a really good team right now. They're a very special team. I'm really, really excited about them. Real quick, to address that one episode that everyone found.
Oh, no,
I
no,
think
no,
that
no,
was
no. I have comments written down.
okay.
I have comments. I watched all 35 minutes. Don't worry. I'm going to give you every opportunity to address a lot of things you said. But
Let's
I just
do
want
it.
you to finish. Okay. If you're finished with this soliloquy about Arizona State, you know what
I
I'm
think I'm
saying?
good.
That's great.
I think I'm
Special
good.
team, but they're about to run into some dogs, you know what I'm saying, on Wednesday. But we'll see what happens.
Very, very, very big dogs.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, it's rare, very rare that I'll ever sit down and listen to a whole Locked On episode, right? And you know what I mean? I love everybody on the network. Everybody does a great job. But it's just very rare that I'll sit down and listen to a whole episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you had me locked in for 35 minutes, all right?
Well, there you go.
Outside of like the horns down, the repeated horns down, you know what I'm saying? You said a lot of things that intrigued me, all right? So I wrote them down, you know, because like I said, everybody was telling me to listen to you, listen to what you had to say. So I'm like, you know, let me go see what my brother Richie had to say. And I thought you had some really intriguing comments, brother. So, you know, Longhorn fans wanted you to come outside. You know what I'm saying? And one thing I want to say is I do appreciate it, because I've talked to so many hosts this year that's like, yeah, Texas is going to kill us. Yeah, Texas is going to blow us out. Yeah, Texas is going to run all over us. And you're like, no, Arizona State absolutely can win this game. Arizona State absolutely has what it takes to win this game. So I appreciate it that you're just not doom and gloom on that other side. But like I said, I appreciate
Hopeless
you. Now you need to
optimism.
come outside and address some of these comments. So the first one you said, the first one I have for you, you said Texas has not played up to their level of competition or talent this year. So what do you mean by that? Can you clarify that? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So when I look at Texas, from number 1 player on the team to number however many they have on that roster, from quarterback 1, 2, 3, 4, however, top of the depth chart, bottom of the depth chart, the coaching staff, everything. Texas to me should be at least the second best team in the country. And I don't really know who stacks up to them in terms of that talent, that coaching, the fan base that is bought in and everything. But I feel like watching them this year, I was left waiting for them to just blow the doors off of everyone. And I felt like most of those games should have been 20 to 30 point wins. It wasn't like this super difficult schedule. It wasn't a super cakewalk or anything, but I felt like majority of the teams they faced were inferior by quite a bit, and that Texas should have just dog walked the majority of of the schedule. And I mean, they won everything except the Georgia game, and you beat down Clemson. And I thought that Clemson game should have been what we saw for most of the year. And there were still some warts in the game, but I just, for me, what I meant by that was this Texas team, top to bottom, I don't know how many teams should compete with them. I just feel like their win should have been more dominant. I don't think they should have lost very many games this year, which they didn't. So that's all I meant by that. That was not supposed to be slanderous at all.
You're good, right? You're good. You're good, Richie. We gotta keep the energy, Richie. You're good. Let's keep the energy. You know what I'm saying? What I'll say is that my argument to that is we all know it's hard to win in football, right? It's hard to win in football. They beat Clemson by 14 points, right? Texas has 12 wins this year at this point. 12 wins, including the Clemson game, and 2 losses. So they're 12-2 against Georgia. 11 of those wins have been by double digits. So my argument would be they have beaten teams the way that they've beaten Clemson. Now, I get that you could say this Texas team maybe should have beat everybody by 20 to 30, maybe. You know what I'm saying? But it's hard to win football games. I look at this team as a team that is here as one of the 8 teams remaining that can win a championship. Mm-hmm. And once again, outside of the Vanderbilt game, has beaten every other team by double digits, which I think you may be undervaluing a little bit, Richie. So I'm going to say that. The next thing I want to talk about.
Fair. And Vandy is sneaky. So I don't think that's a bad thing at all. They beat the Bama teams this year.
Right. You said Texas in Atlanta is going to get hit harder than they've been hit in years. I just want to let you know that this is a team that over the last 3 years has played Alabama twice and Georgia twice. What gives you the impression that Arizona State, no disrespect to the Sun Devils, right? But Arizona State is going to hit Texas harder than they've been hit in years?
That's another one where I don't know that where I was saying that was supposed to be like in terms of talent. Like I know we don't have Ray Lewis and Sean Taylor and stuff like that. That's pummeling guys or anything. The way that Bama and Georgia have had some of those enforcers on their defense. Where I was coming from was a lot more of that motivation, that passion, all the stuff that at the end of the day I can talk about till I'm blue in the face, but a lot more just passion for ASU because like we said at the top of the show, they weren't supposed to be here. We talk about Bama, Georgia, Texas, some of the other teams across the country, Ohio State, Oregon, like they're all supposed to be here, and it's because they have so many talented players and certainly players that can absolutely smoke you if you go over the middle, and they're going to put you in the dirt, and it's going to hurt. ASU is just there's so much of like we have to prove ourselves, and we've been overlooked all year, and we have to show the world that we belong. And to get to that point, you've got to play above your level. So we do have talented players. It's not like we don't have good linebackers and good safeties and stuff like that, but they're going to have to hit like they've never hit before. And that's where I'm coming from with that statement. Like I understand the talent difference for sure. And to a outsider's perspective of not ASU fans, totally understand why that would be construed that way. It was not supposed to be that way. That episode was very much a rah-rah episode.
I love it. I love it. I want you to rah-rah right now, Richie. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Keep the rah-rah right now. Because you said if Texas overlooks ASU, they will lose. And you said what is more dangerous than a talented team is a driven team, right? So my question is Texas not driven? Like, does Texas not want to win too? Does Texas not have the talent and the culture? Does Texas not have the talent and the drive? Like, do you think Texas is just going to walk into the Peach Bowl and be like, oh, that's just Arizona State. Oh, it's just the playoffs. Or do you think Texas is trying to put Arizona State in the dirt too?
They're very driven, and they have been told all year, you don't deserve to be in the SEC. You're the little brother, even though, like I said earlier, pound for pound, you're one of the most talented rosters in college football. That is a driven team for sure. For one of your comments, there is a part of me that does think Texas will go in and be like, it's Arizona State. We're going to crush them. But no, that does not mean they're not a driven team or a team that has nothing to play for. They have a lot to play for, and they have a lot to prove and all that good stuff. So, I mean, they're just as motivated as ASU is. It's different motivations where Texas is trying to prove like, hey, we are heavyweight contenders. We need to be respected as such. ASU is more trying to prove like, hey, we are an up-and-coming program. This is not a Cinderella team. We demand the respect that we have been very patiently earning this year. The AP voters, which is a whole other rant, have just been so lukewarm about giving ASU the love that they deserve. 2 losses this year. One of them was without Sam Leavitt, but a loss is a loss. You won't hear me argue too much about that. Like, it is what it is. I don't like moral victories or anything like that. Wins are wins, losses are losses at the end of the day. So ASU has just been overlooked all year long, which has led to their motivation. But no, of course, Texas has a lot that they've been playing for as well.
Right. I think at this point, both teams are 3 games away from winning a national championship. I think motivation and drive is everybody's trying to hoist that trophy at the end of the year for sure. So great stuff from Richie thus far on this Locked On crossover. I guess great stuff from both of us. Even though I've been more in interview mode, in terms of Richie. Next, we're going to talk about the quarterback situation, right? We're going to talk about the quarterback situation. And there's been some comments from the ASU side, but you talked about Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt came out and talked about Quinn Ewers. So I'm going to get your thoughts on that after a quick word from our sponsors and a break real quick. All right, today's Locked On crossover between Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the overlay on the bottom of the screen. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. 3 times the charm, isn't it? All right. All right, bringing Richie Bradshaw back in, Locked On crossover. Jonathan Davis, Locked On Longhorns. Richie Bradshaw, Locked On Sun Devils. So there's been some talk, right? Not just on Locked On Sun Devils, but there's been some talk. And I do get the feeling that, like you said, this Sun Devils team feels like they're overlooked. They have that chip on their shoulder, right? Everybody's like, oh, you're going to get killed against Texas. And they're like, no, watch this, right? And not only did Sam Leavitt come out, which I thought was interesting, because normally, especially from the quarterback position, we usually see guys that are like, very PC, very press conference answer, very politically correct. They usually don't give bulletin board material, right? And he comes out and he's like, I've been watching Quinn Ewers and I'm going to prove to the world that I'm better than him. Right. And everybody's like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Whoa. Like, I know you did an episode on Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons reposted it on Instagram. So obviously, if he wanted to send a message, he did. You know what I mean?
Like mine?
No, the Sam Leavitt's comments.
Okay, I was going to go, oh my God.
No.
That's terrifying.
No, Colin Simmons reposted Sam Leavitt's comments on his Instagram story.
I gotcha.
Right. And then on your podcast, you said that Sam Leavitt is better than Quinn Ewers definitively. So you agree with him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So my question is, what are your thoughts on the comments? Not, if you think he's better or not, But what are your thoughts on ASU coming out with the bulletin board material? Then you also have Zach Swanson, right? The former, I believe that's his name, the former Texas player that said they wanted this matchup, right? He was told he would never play by the Texas staff, and he's been looking forward to this matchup. So what are your thoughts on like that bravado, that chip on that shoulder, that edge that's coming from this ASU team that's like outward with the, yeah, we want to play Texas and we're going to shock the world mentality? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you got to have the confidence and tell yourself, like, so real quick, like you said, there's definitely like press conference answers that you give where it's the right answers, but like you said, you're not giving bulletin board material and stuff for guys to post on their Instagram stories and quote on Twitter and be like, okay, yeah, we'll prove it kind of thing. And Quinn Ewers isn't that guy. So I love that his teammates are doing it for him and just kind of hyping him up of like, yeah, no, you're going to learn who Quinn Ewers is really, really quick. And I am a huge Ewers fan, but I'm just, when I look at Sam Leavitt, it's a whole other thing. But as far as the comments, I was taken off guard because Sam is a very confident player, and he's been very outspoken this year about how he plays football, how he prepares and everything like that. But he hasn't really put himself on a target board and put himself right on the bullseye nonetheless. But here he is doing it, and like, it excites me. I haven't addressed it yet on my show. I like it, but like you said, it's bulletin board material, and that's something that the Texas players, the fans, the host of Locked On Longhorns has taken notice of, and it should be. So I like the confidence, and especially at the quarterback position, as you know, you have to have that confidence. I'm the best guy on the field. I'm the best guy in the league, all that, or else you're just not going to be able to play at a level that you need to be able to play at to beat the teams that you need to beat, or you're supposed to be, or you're supposed to upset, or anything like that. I appreciate his swagger, his confidence and everything, but it's like you said, it's not something that you typically see at a press conference. So let's see how it holds up for him. It's one thing for Locked On Sun Devils to say it. It's another thing for Sam Leavitt to say it.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me regarding those comments is that there hasn't been like this national debate between Sam Leavitt and Quinn Ewers, right? It's not like a Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, or a Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, where they're constantly being pitted against each other. And it's like, no, I'm going to show you I'm the better one. Like, there hasn't been a ton of talk around Sam Leavitt and Quinn Ewers. So it's like, where is this coming from? Like, where is this thought that I'm going to show the world I'm better than Quinn Ewers coming from? Is it because of what Quinn Ewers was rated? Coming out of high school? Is it because coming into the season he was a Heisman candidate and one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, and Sam Leavitt hasn't gotten that respect necessarily? My only concern is I love it when players tell the truth, right? Like, he's telling the truth. You know what I mean? Like, yes, he could come out and give us a PC answer, but he's saying what he feels, and I respect that, right? That's why we put the microphones in their face. We ask them to tell the truth, and we shouldn't penalize them when they do that. My only concern, if I'm an Arizona State fan, is this offense runs through Scatterboo, right? Scatterboo is the best player on this team. The best path to victory for Arizona State is for Scatterboo to run the ball and control this game, right? I would be concerned that Sam Leavitt is coming into this game and trying to make it Sam Leavitt versus Quinn Ewers rather than Arizona State versus the Texas Longhorns.
To counter that first point real quick about no national narrative about Ewers versus Leavitt, a huge part of that, and especially going into this game, if it was something that ESPN or Bleacher Report wanted to discuss, they would discuss it. We would see those articles of like, who's got the edge, Quinn Ewers versus Sam Leavitt. But a huge part of that is not a lot of people know who Sam Leavitt is. And it's a lot to do with no one really knows too much about this ASU team other than Kenny Dillingham. You either love him or you hate him, depending if you live in Provo, Utah, or if you live in anywhere else in the country. And it's just a team no one really knows about. And, the hope is next year people will be more aware of ASU. that would just be my pushback on that. Is the reason why is no one really knows Sam Leavitt. Like, sure, he's a former 4-star out of Oregon, but that's about the extent of what we know. Whereas Quinn Ewers playing for one of the best teams in the country. He's been the face of the Longhorns, or at least one of the biggest faces for 3 years now. So he just doesn't have the star power to earn that right, if you would. It's a really interesting situation. And I love the point of, is it going to be ASU versus Texas, or is it going to be Sam Leavitt versus Quinn Ewers? That's hopefully not the way Sam goes into it. And like I said, Sam is a very confident player. He's very team-oriented and everything, but we've never seen him make a comment like that before. So it'll be interesting to see if that's where he is. I don't think it is, and I certainly hope it's not. But if that ends up being the case, then that's something that could go against ASU. Cam Skattebo, like you said, he has been the force of ASU all year long. There was a reason that he was 5th in Heisman voting, and he's been one of the best stories in college football as a former player who only had one offer from Sacramento State, goes to ASU, and in 2 years, he's an all-time Sun Devil. It's remarkable. But what we have seen this year from week 1 to the Big 12 championship is teams have said, and albeit they failed, hey, we're going to take away Cam Skattebo. We're going to stuff the box. We're going to take him away. We're going to limit him at a minimum. You're going to have to beat us with your arm. First month and a half, yeah, Sam Leavitt couldn't do that. So thankfully, Cam Skattebo was just able to overcome and achieve. Over the last month and a half, Sam Leavitt has said, okay, I take that personally, and he's dominated. 16 or 17 touchdowns against 1 interception over his last 5 games. Against Iowa State with a good secondary, he lit him up. And that was without Jordan Tyson, who was leading college football in receiving yards for like the last month and a half to 2 months or so of the regular season. He's gotten much better as a passer and much more confident. The development from week 1 to the Big 12 championship, I've said this many a times. If you showed me that in week 1, what he did in the Big 12 championship, I would have assumed that was a year or maybe even 2 years down the road. I would not have seen where he has gotten to that point as quickly as he has. So I do think that Cam Skattebo is number 1 priority every single week. But unlike the beginning of the year to where we are now, Sam Leavitt is more capable of winning games with his arm. But we also have not seen a defense like Texas. So is that going to hold up? We're going to find out.
Right. So, I want to ask you before we get into the break and then, make our predictions and, talk about, how we think the game is going to go. When you say Sam Leavitt is definitively better than Quinn Ewers, right? Definitively. And I love the confidence. You know what I'm saying? Definitively better than Quinn Ewers. And if you think otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. That's what you said. So do you think that it's more about Sam Leavitt being underrated or Quinn Ewers being overrated, right? Because you went through the stats and the stats were about the same. Obviously, Quinn Ewers a little bit more turnover prone.
Yeah, I was very hyped for that, and then I looked and I was like, okay, that did not back me up the way I thought it was going.
Right. So is it like Sam Leavitt? Like I said, is it more about Sam Leavitt being underrated and it's like people are about to find out who he is? Or is it like we've expected more from Quinn Ewers? Because, there's a lot of Texas fans that probably would agree with you. Maybe not that Sam Leavitt is better, but they've expected more from Quinn Ewers. So
right.
Is it more of like a Quinn Ewers is overrated thing or Sam Leavitt is underrated?
I don't know that it's either, but what I will tell you, I do not think Quinn is overrated. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in college football. I know the injuries have unfortunately really slowed him down, and that breaks my heart because I love watching Quinn Ewers. But I watch Sam Leavitt, and what makes the difference for me, I think we have seen the best from Quinn Ewers, and it's NFL level, and he's a very good quarterback, and he can win you a national championship. I mean, he was a handful of plays away against Washington from going to play Michigan, and I think they would have stacked up better against Michigan with a better defense, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, he was right there, and he's got the chance to be able to do it again this year. He's a very, very good quarterback. But like I said, I think we have seen the best from Quinn Ewers. I don't think we've seen the best yet for Sam Leavitt, and Leavitt has played as hot as any quarterback in college football. And I've said this many times before the rah-rah episode that the Longhorns fans caught. I don't think you can name 10 quarterbacks in college football that have been playing better football than Sam Leavitt over the last month and a half to 2 months of the year. And could he just be playing hot? Sure, he definitely could be. And he might get a very humbling experience against Texas, and that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. But what I have seen from him is just so beyond special and something that ASU fans haven't seen in literal decades. And I don't think he's done growing. And I think that we're just going to see him continue to get better. So when I say definitively better than Ewers, it is projection for sure. Because again, I'm saying that Leavitt isn't done getting better. He very well could, or he just got hot at the right time. I just have a lot of confidence that there's more here to see. But I do love Quinn. That was never a shot at Quinn. It was always a praise of Sam Leavitt. Was never supposed to be a shot. So if it came across that way, that's my bad, Longhorns fans. I love Quinn Ewers. I will die on that hill defending him. One of my favorite guys.
You probably love him more than the Longhorn fans do.
I might.
You probably love him more than the Longhorn fans do. You know what I'm saying?
Quick.
The way you was talking about being scared of Arch Manning, they all calling for Arch Manning. So you ain't got to apologize for what you said about Quinn. You know what I'm saying?
Real
they
quick,
probably feel the same way.
What's funny for me is I love how quickly Longhorn fans went to defend Quinn when I was calling him out. And it made me think of, like, you know, when you're younger and you have like a sibling and you like bully your sibling and all that, but then someone else goes to bully your sibling and you're like, hey, back off.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
Only we can talk about Quinn. You start talking about Quinn, and yeah.
Exactly.
We gonna come
and I
for
love
you,
it.
Sure.
That's the way it should be.
For sure. All right, man. One last break from the sponsors, and then we get into the predictions, what we think is going to happen in this game, who wins the Peach Bowl to advance and face the winner of Oregon and Ohio State. Whew. Sheesh. All right, Richie, I put a lot of pressure on you. You know what I'm saying? Throughout this Locked On crossover episode. But I do appreciate it. Like I said, Longhorn fans wanted you to come outside. You did come outside. You know what I'm saying? And you did address a lot of what you said, you know, in that episode. Did very well, right? I watched it this morning. You know what I'm saying? It was 9,000 plus views. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, you know, Longhorn fans are professional yappers. They'll come in your comments. I've learned that with Georgia fans this year. You know, it's just some fan bases that you tick them off, or you say the right thing, and next thing you know, you're sitting on a gold mine of comments. But
right, but you know what? You guys have earned that right.
Yeah,
to talk that.
And you were very complimentary. Like the way that Texas fans were telling me, and the clips I was seeing, I was surprised that you were so complimentary of Texas in the video, because I'm like, they were just like, oh, he was just throwing horns down and just talking shit for 30 minutes. I'm like, no, he was actually very complimentary. You know what I'm saying? Like when I watched it, you know?
That's what I try to do. And again, in a rah-rah episode where I'm all ASU and I'm boosting them up and everything, there is a part of me in the back of my head that's like, dude, you need to remember, despite how you feel about Texas, that's a damn good football team, and they could smoke you. So a lot of confidence, but I definitely needed to make sure, even in the moment, that I was reminding myself, yeah, this may not go the way you think, dude.
Yeah. As long as you're comfortable with it being on the internet and people being able to come back to it, you'll be all right.
And
man.
That's one of the reasons I was happy to sit down with you and address that stuff, because one of the things I loved was like, oh, he's too biased and everything. And one, yes, I am very biased at times, but I do have to sit here and defend what I'm saying, but I got to come from an analytical and unbiased approach. So I think this was a great case for me and you to sit down and have that, where I can say, yeah, you know, I was really, really excited, but hear me out kind of thing.
For sure. So I said that when I said I put a lot of pressure on you. So I'm going to take the pressure off of you right now. I'm going to go first, right? And I'm going to say what I think happens in this game. I am normally the Texas host, / fan. I am a fan, right? You do see the Texas hat. You do see the, Texas on the shirt,
Dude,
So
I told you before the show, that hat's sweet.
yeah, appreciate it. So I am feeling good about my Longhorns. I do like them a little bit. Normally I'm the Texas fan / host that's like, we need to calm down a little bit, right? I always look at the spread and I say, I don't know. There is another team on the other side trying to win. I always say this is the playoffs. Anything can happen. Texas needs to be on their P's and Q's, and they certainly do, right?
But
when I look at that spread of 13.5 against Arizona State, Richie, I think Texas wins this game by 20.
Really?
I think Texas wins this game by 20 plus. I think Texas knows who they are at this point. And I think Texas knows what they need to do to win a national championship.
Yes.
I think they know that they need to run the ball 30 to 35 times, if not more. I think that they know that Quinn Ewers, as talented as he is probably or should be one of the most talented game managers in college football. And Steve Sarkisian understands that Quinn Ewers should be complementary to this run game. I think you talked about that offensive line. They have given up some sacks. And what's funny is a lot of, Pro Football Focus will credit a lot of those to Quinn.
I was going to say, I ended up talking with some Longhorn fans, and they told me, like, hey, that's a stat that
may be a little
Quinn.
misleading.
Right, exactly. And that's what I figured, because I'm like, you literally have two of the best tackles. Like, there's no way they're giving up those sacks. So that made a lot more sense when I got to sit down with some other Longhorn fans and have that conversation.
I think this offensive line right now, we saw it in the Kentucky game. We saw it in the Texas A&M game. Didn't see it against Georgia, but Georgia's just a different beast, right? We've seen that over the last couple of years. We saw it against Clemson. This offensive line is in the mode of moving people right now, right? They are getting downhill and they are moving people. And I just don't think that Arizona State, you talked about the defense, you said they're playing with confidence, swagger, and unity. Confidence, swagger, and unity aren't shedding blocks. You know what I'm saying? They aren't rushing the pass.
Punched in the mouth, it doesn't matter.
They're not in man or zone coverage. You know what I'm saying? Right. I think that this offensive line I just think Texas has the guys, right? Like when they talked about getting SEC ready, they talked about those big humans, those big players, those NFL ready big humans that are just going to move Arizona State around the way that they moved a Clemson defense with a lot more talent on it, right? And I think at the end of the day, you have to have talent, right? Like you said, confidence, swagger, and unity, they can only take you so far. I just think that this Texas offense is ready to come out and play smash mouth football, and then you still have Quinn Ewers, explosive weapons, Gunnar Helm, and Steve Sarkisian pulling the strings. And then we talk about this defense, statistically one of the best pass defenses we've seen in college football in a long time. And I do think that what can be interesting is that the one Achilles heel maybe of this defense is the run defense. But I think that, in the moment, in the Peach Bowl, they'll show up and understand the assignment against Cam Scatterboo, and they'll do a decent job. I think he'll still get his yards. He'll still make some big plays, but I do think they'll do a decent job of containing him. They will turn this into a Sam Leavitt has to beat us type of football game, and I don't think he'll be able to. So I do think that Texas, like I said, I'm usually the fan that's holding back, the host that's holding back, but I do think that Texas not only covers the spread, I think they win this game by 20 plus points. What are your thoughts?
So we can talk, like you said, you can talk about motivated and confident and unity and all that till you're blue in the face. You get punched in the face, it's not going to matter. That ASU team is still very talented, and there are players that could end up getting to that next level. I'm glad a lot of them are coming back, not just for the fact of ASU remaining competitive next year, but there are plenty of very talented players who need another year, maybe even 2 years if they've got it, to get to that point, and ASU's coaching staff can get them there. Neither here nor there. But there is plenty of talent on this team. I love the interior of the defensive line. We'll see how ASU plays off the edge, and they are missing their star safety nickel defender, Shamari Simmons, for the first half of the game for a very questionable targeting penalty, and that's a big deal because he is one of the best edge setters that ASU has playing out of the nickel. But they've still got linebackers that fly to the football. They've still got more than quality edge rushers. No, they're not nearly as talented as Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams, but they can still do their jobs well. And I have the faith and the confidence that they'll be able to step up and be a better run defense than Clemson was. And they've been a really good run defense this year. We'll see. Like I've said earlier, they've not played a team like Texas yet. And those are two borderline superstar running backs that complement each other. And there's a chance they both get to 1,000 yards this year. So I do believe that ASU can set that edge very well, not just with the unity, the confidence, and everything. There is really good talent. There's even better coaching for that defense. Offensively, if you're telling me Cam can move the football, that's got me more confident. I have not had a chance to sit down and look at like the box score stuff. Would obviously take that with a grain of salt. But as far as that secondary goes, yeah, that thing scares me. John A. Barron in particular, as an NFL draft fan, I love him. He's very quickly going up my board. One of my favorite guys in the draft. I don't know how ASU is planning to attack this secondary, considering you don't have Jordan Tyson. But what I would expect is, even with a definitively less talented receiving core compared to that secondary, you're going to see Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham find ways to scheme up guys to get open rather than relying on them to get open individually. Could they? Sure, of course. They're still talented players, but this is going to be much more of a scheme-driven game for ASU on both sides of the football to beat Texas. You don't match up with them. If you turn on college football 25, Texas 95, ASU and 85, like there is a big discrepancy that we are all aware of. It's going to be a scheme-driven game for ASU to win the game. And of course, as an ASU fan, I am taking ASU to win. It would be really close. Either way, I think ASU confidently covers 13.5. I have my own feelings about it, but our good friend Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football put it perfectly. You can call it disrespectful if you want. At the end of the day, there's a reason why it's that big, and it's because Texas has earned it and ASU has not earned it. Call it what it is. I think ASU, if they win this game, it's going to be close. They could definitely lose. I just don't think it's by 14. I think that they're going to play much better than some of the other guys that you've played this year. And I mean, that's me speaking highly of the team. And I've been wrong many a times, and I'm not done being wrong. But that's kind of where I'm at with this game. I'm taking ASU. Everything's stacked against them, and it should be. Let's see if they can shock the world.
Yes, sir. And as you should. You know what I'm saying? You should take Arizona State in this game, and I'm taking Texas. What we do know is it's going to be a lot of good football. I think Tuesday night is the first game, and then you got the 3 matchups on Wednesday. Very good round, and then we move on to the round of 4, and then, obviously the national championship. But, like you said, Arizona State's played a lot of good football to get to this point. Texas has played a lot of good football to get to this point, and only one team can move on. Jonathan Davis from Locked On Longhorns, Richie Bradshaw from Locked On Sun Devils. We appreciate you for tuning in to another Locked On crossover. Once again, enjoy the rest of your holiday season and enjoy some really good football on New Year's Day.